My name is Lindsay Jilk, and I'm here from WSU Student Financial Services to go over understanding your financial aid offer. We are delighted that we have offers to share. All right, so at this point, in order to see an offer, what I'm hoping you've already done is submitted either your FAFSA or WASFA. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And I'm hoping that you already submitted your WSU General Scholarship application. That closed on May 1st, and that is a hard deadline, but it is all financial aid you're going to apply for every year. So actually, this upcoming August, it's going to open up for the 25-26 school year. So you can always look forward to that. So again, going over FAFSA or WASFA, I hope you've already done this, but in case you're not sure, please contact us. We'd love to help you. The FAFSA is going to be for U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. The WASFA is for residents of the state of Washington who are not eligible for the FAFSA. And with both of those, they are going to be done yearly, and you only need to do one or the other, so it's not both. So make sure you're just doing the one you qualify for. If you qualify for the FAFSA, do that. If you don't qualify for the FAFSA and you qualify for the WASFA, please do that. And looking forward, this year's been a weird year as far as dates, but normally every single year, the FAFSA and WASFA each open on October 1st. And they have priority deadlines of January 31st for incoming first-year students and November 30th for returning students. So anyone who's a first year now, November 30th of 2024 is going to be that priority date. So there might be a few reasons why, say you've already done this, your FAFSA or WASFA, but you don't have an offer yet. I'm going to go over some reasons why you might not have one and what you should do. So first of all, if you haven't done one yet, we can't give you an offer that includes that aid. So please go ahead and do one. Make sure you've done it for the 24-25 year. There's not going to be anything that stops you today from doing the previous year's FAFSA. So we want to make sure you're doing the right one. The other reason that's very common, and this is true, it's saying just FAFSA, but it's true for both FAFSA and WASFA, is if you're missing a final step, that signature from either the student or the parent. So if you see a message at the end of your application, it might be saying additional step needed. You and your parent have to go in and sign that application to make it official. The other reason is you might have just gotten a notice from us that we need additional information from you to verify and document the information you put on your FAFSA. In that case, you've been selected for a process called verification, and you're going to see an email at your @wsu.edu email. You're also going to see action items in the task tile in My WSU, and we'll have some visuals in a little bit so you can see exactly what that looks like. Another reason is if you are actually a dependent student as far as financial aid is concerned, so on the FAFSA or WASFA, which is very different than maybe IRS dependent, independent. They're different, which is so fun. So if you're actually a dependent student, but you didn't provide parent information, you wouldn't have an offer yet, and you probably have a message from us saying, hey, you need to go back and add that parent information. We're going through those applications now. Speaking of independent, what determines someone to be independent as an undergraduate is typically some pretty extreme situations. So if you are 24 years or older, so actually I believe that would be January 2001? If you are married, if you have a dependent who receives more than 50% of their financial support from you, so if you have a dependent but your parent is the one providing for both you and the dependent, then you're still considered a dependent student. If you're active duty military, that would make you considered independent. If you're emancipated minor or unaccompanied youth, you'd be considered independent. And all graduate students pursuing a master's or doctoral program are going to be considered independent students. Anyone else, you can assume you are a dependent student and you need to supply parental information on the FAFSA or WASFA. So verification, we touched on a little bit. Essentially what this is it is a process where the Department of Education somewhat randomly selects certain students, and we have to verify the information on your FAFSA. We need to double check that the information is accurate. Sometimes it might be because there's inconsistent information, could be there's missing information, but it allows us to make sure everything is accurate. With that, we've just sent out those notifications, so that March 15th deadline is not actually the case. It is going to be farther in August. I will ask one of my colleagues to pop that in the chat, the exact date in August. So if you've been selected, again, you're going to see that My WSU email. You'll also see the action item in the task button, and it will take you to submitsfsdocs.wsu.edu. This is our secure portal. We do not want you emailing any of these private tax documents. So this is the only way we want to receive the items we've asked for you, is through Submit SFS Docs. So there's two ways to navigate to Submit SFS Docs. One is going to our main page. So if you're going to financialaid.wsu.edu, just our homepage, if you scroll down to the square that says uploading forms / missing documents, you'll see the Submit SFS Docs portal there. And this is something where even if a parent has a third-party authorization login, only the student is able to actually log in to upload these documents. So the student might be uploading the documents for the parents if part of what we've requested is documents for the parents. And so the other way to navigate to see these items is to go through that task tile. So this is your my.wsu.edu homepage, and you'll see down there the tasks button. You can have items from our office, you can have items from many offices across campus. This is going to give you the action item and tell you what you need to do. When you click on it, it will give you a message of what we need, and then it will take you along to that secure Submit SFS Docs website. So now that we've kind of covered, okay, what if you didn't get an offer? Let's cover what you need to know about the offers. So the first thing I want to go over is a few really important terms. One big thing you'll hear us talk about is need, or federal need. And what this is a calculation based on taking the cost of attendance, which is the estimated cost of attending a specific university, and then we subtract your student aid index, or your SAI. And this is an index number that is calculated with a formula given to us. It's set in law, it's standard for every single person how it is calculated. And we use that to determine eligibility. This was formerly called EFC, or expected family contribution. So you might see a little differences if you've had other students in your family, or if you received aid any year previous to this. So subtracting that, we take that cost of attendance, we subtract that SAI, and that's how we get federal need. So this is how much need-based aid, grants, scholarships, subsidized loans that you can receive. So it both gives us how much eligibility you have and kind of a limit. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So with that cost of attendance, that is how much financial aid you can have. So all of your financial aid that we've offered you right now, if you're a dependent student, is going to add up to cost of attendance. I say dependent students because those dependent students are going to be offered Parent Plus loans up to that cost of attendance. Independent undergrads aren't going to have those Parent Plus loans offered. But the big takeaway here is the amount of your financial aid can only be equal to or less than what your cost of attendance is. Another way to visualize it is your cost of attendance is a cup. We take that federal need based on your student aid index at SAI, and that is the limit of how much need-based aid you can have. So scholarships, grants, even subsidized loans or need-based aid. So that's that smaller limit, that need-based aid. And then altogether, with all other types of loans and different kinds of financial aid, that's how we get your full financial aid offer. And that limiting factor is how much it costs. We don't want to offer you any aid, especially not loans, that exceed the amount of what it costs to attend. We are very much in favor of keeping you in as little debt as possible. So, how do you take a look at what your aid offer is? There's a couple of different ways that you can look at it. Now that we've got the basics, you can go into your MyWSU, and at that financial aid button, it's not the financial accounts. That's where you're going to pay the bills, but financial aid is where you're going to go. And then you'll be able to see all your aid listed out, and it's going to be grouped in loan or in financial aid type. We'll go over these different types. One thing I just want to point out is if you have been if you've received financial aid any previous years at WSU, just make sure you're looking at the correct aid year. So you're able to go up and change that year to make sure you're viewing your current offer. You can also from here see your cost of attendance. So from that financial aid button, you're going to click financial aid summary and then select cost of attendance, and you're going to see that year's cost of attendance. So let's talk about what cost of attendance is. We know it's the limit for how much financial aid you can receive. There's two different categories of costs that go into your cost of attendance. There's direct costs. These are pretty set in stone. They're the same for everyone. They're billed directly by the university. And there's indirect costs. And those are going to depend on lifestyle and consumer choices you make. You have some more control over these. So let's break it down a little bit. So these direct costs, these are non-negotiable. Every student enrolled full-time will have these costs. The only difference you'll see in all of these is going to be tuition. Whether you're resident or non-resident, you've got that tuition difference. So it's going to be charged by the university, and you'll be charged per term. We'll talk about timing a little later. If you're interested in knowing more about what specific mandatory fees there are, there's a couple of websites there for where you can go and see the exact details. And we are going to have this slideshow up on our website by tomorrow, I believe, or very soon. So if there's anything you're not quite seeing, you'll be able to view it all. Okay, so we covered those direct costs, and now there's indirect costs. These are not guaranteed to be charged to the university. The only exception is first-year students at Pullman have that live on campus rule. So likely for you, you will be charged by the university, but it's something that you still have choice. You get to choose which dorm you're living in, and with that, you kind of can control how much it costs you. And in future years, you can choose, living on campus, off campus, and take a look at the costs there. So books and supplies, miscellaneous living expenses, transportation, you have choices as to where you shop, how you shop, buying books used, doing a online version of the book, just buying the license, not buying the entire book. These are all ways that you can help cut down on how much things actually cost you. So if you haven't already, going to the WSU Housing and Dining website and taking a look, it gives you actual price ranges and actual amounts for especially that link that ends with rates. It'll tell you for the different kind of room at the different dorms how much things cost. So you should be walking into this even before the charges go on, which won't be until July. You should have a pretty good idea of what a semester is going to cost you. So let's go over a little bit more about the student aid index and kind of what it means. Again, you might be used to hearing the term expected family contribution. It's now SAI. So it's based on the FAFSA WASFA. It includes tax information, household size, and it uses that financial information from 2 years prior. It is a number that is what a family potentially could provide. Providing information on the FAFSA is not a commitment by your family to financially help you through college. It is, if you fit those definitions of a dependent student, you have to provide that parent information to get the idea of what your student aid index is, but they're not having to commit that much. Another thing to really know is a 0 or a negative SAI does not mean that you will have free funds to cover all costs. Loans are very likely going to be a part of what you're offered to pay for college. But as we just looked at, you might not need loans to cover all of these items. There might be items in here that you're not currently paying for with loans, so our hope is that you don't need loans to cover all of those. It's appropriate if you do. So, needs summary. This is showing you, it's labeled expected family contribution here, but that is SAI, that student aid index. It's taking, so you've already seen that cost of attendance for yourself, looking at your specific SAI and how much need you have. So this is a way for you to see very transparently how that need calculation works for you. One other thing to consider, because every year the FAFSA is going to be based on 2 years prior financial information, we have a process called a special circumstance appeal that allows us to account for any changes in your financial situation. A lot can happen within 2 years. Maybe your family situation has changed. Maybe there's been a birth, a death, a change in employment, change in marital status. These all can affect your family's ability to contribute, so affect your SAI. This form will be open, I do believe, in June for you to be able to fill out. We will send out notifications to students so you're aware when this is available, but it is very specific criteria that have to be met and documentation that we need. But if you fall into this, this can be really helpful to make sure we're documenting your actual experience. So one way to see that financial aid offer, other than going into your MyWSU, is going to the WSU financialaid.wsu.edu main website, going under your financial aid offer, and from there, you're able to hit summary, scroll down, and hit print financial offer letter. So from that, you're going to get this really lovely letter, which is very helpful, probably much more helpful for sharing with maybe a parent or supporter who doesn't have immediate access to your information in MyWSU. It's also extremely helpful for a lot of scholarships that might need to know what your costs are, what your financial aid offer is. So you can a lot of times just send this letter directly to them. So we've seen now the 2 different ways that you can look at your financial aid offer. So now let's go ahead and look at the different types of aid you're going to be offered. The first group is going to be free money, so grants and scholarships. So for FAFSA filers, depending on your student aid index, part of what you could be offered is a Pell Grant. With that, it is mirrored by an SCOG grant. So this depends on what that SAI is, items determined on that FAFSA, and because it is federal aid, you have to be a FAFSA filer, and all these grants are going to be adjusted based on how many credits you're enrolled in. Full-time for financial aid is 12 credits, and so any enrollment below that will be adjusting your grant to reflect your actual enrollment. So different state grants. So for these, you could fill out the FAFSA or the WASFA. Again, one or the other, not both. And these are for residents of the state of Washington. And Washington College Grant is a really great program designed to help students pay for college and cover that tuition and mandatory fees. There's also the additional college bound that is going to help you. This is when you would have had to sign up for in 7th or 8th grade, and students would have to have met all the criteria, and it's going to give you help you cover tuition and mandatory fees up to a certain amount. The other items that we've got available are institutional grants or WSU grants. We've got 2 different kinds. Again, these are based on FAFSA or WASFA, so I hope you guys have filed those, or do if you haven't already. And for these, we need to file by the priority dates. For this year, with everything with the delayed release of the FAFSA and then the delayed release of that information to schools, we've pushed back those priority dates to June 1st. So even if you haven't filled it out, you still have time. Go and do that right now. But to be considered for either of these grants, you do have to be meeting that priority date of filing before June 1st. And then finally, as far as institutional grants, we do have the Cougar Commitment Grant. Again, you're going to need to meet these priority deadlines. So you'll see the importance of, to maximize free money, you really want to fill out that WSU General Scholarship application and make sure you're meeting these priority deadlines. All right, so the next category is going to be student loans. Student loans are federal financial aid, so you have to be a FAFSA filer, and they do require you to be enrolled in a minimum of 6 credits, so that's half time. There are 2 different kinds of student loans. So these are loans that are in the student's name. They cannot be transferred like to the parent. It's in the student's name. They're automatically, payment is deferred until after school. And then there's a 6-month grace period, and then payments will be due. There are both annual, so yearly limits, and lifetime limits. And this is guaranteed funding, meaning it's not based on a credit approval process. Now, that difference between subsidized and unsubsidized is what is subsidized in the subsidized loan is the interest while a student is enrolled at least half time. So this type of loan, if you qualify for it, and is need-based aid, so it needs to fit within that need-based aid limit that you have, you're going to be offered that. It's not going to start accruing interest until after that 6-month grace period when payments are coming into effect, when you enter repayment 6 months after graduating or leaving school. Unsubsidized loans, the fall portion will start accruing interest once it disperses. It still does not, when spring disperses, it still doesn't require payments until 6 months after you graduate or leave school. So Parent Plus loans, these are loans in the student parent's name, it is parents of FAFSA eligible students. So the makeup of this federal program is it's got to be a either adoptive parent or biological parent. It can't be a guardian. It is based on credit approval, so it's not guaranteed, and it stays in that parent's name. The parent can't transfer it to the student. Repayment also does start while the student is school. There are deferment options available, but it's something that the parent borrower needs to opt into. A crucial part of being able to apply for this is the parent must have third-party access. They must have third-party authorization from their student, and we'll go over that a little bit later. So we've talked about applying for loans. I want to point out any free money, so Pell scholarships that you get, grants, you don't have to take any action to receive them. Once offered, as long as you're enrolled in the required credits, it's accepted on your behalf. Loans, that's dead. So you have to specifically opt in and accept those loans. Nothing's going to happen unless the student goes in and does that. So with this, the student is going to be able to go into the current year under that general tab in their award details. They'll be able to see the status of that specific loan. Then they can hit that teeny tiny little pencil that you see there. That allows you to edit and go in and put the amount you'd like to accept for the loans. So you do not have to accept the full amount you've been offered. In fact, we'd highly recommend that you only take out what you need. Because the subsidized loan is more favorable, if you only need some of your loans, we absolutely recommend that you start with that subsidized loan and then only move on to that unsubsidized loan if you need it. So optional loans. There are Parent Plus loans that are offered. Your parent, like we said, needs to be approved for it. There are other types of loans. There's private education loans, but since that's not part of the accepting through my WSU process, we're not going to go into that today. We do have information on private education loans on our website, and it's something we talk about in new COOG orientation presentations also. Another option that is offered to students who qualify is work study. So this is need-based aid. It is paid as the student works to earn it. For the 24-25 year, we have not sent out those notifications yet. They will be out before the end of June. Students can start looking for jobs now. They don't have to wait until they're on their campus. They can go to the student employment website, which is wsu.joinhandshake.com. There's also a button within my WSU that takes you straight to Handshake. There are certain jobs that require work study, but work study is not required to work on campus. So any jobs that do require work study are going to be clearly labeled. Any job on campus, 99% of the time can be turned into a work study job. Scholarships. So again, I hope you already filled out that application, but I'm going to go over the dates again for 25-26. So admission-based scholarships are going to be assigned to you at the time of admissions. No action is needed. It's based on that admission application information. So for that 25-26 year, especially if you miss this year, no, it's going to open September of 24 with a hard deadline of January 31st, 2025. This is great because it's one application that you fill out and hundreds of scholarships across campus, different departments use this to award their scholarships. I highly recommend that you grab that QR code. Again, if you don't grab it now, we'll have this posted on our website very soon. But it's going to take you to a brochure that gives you some really in-depth tips about applying for and finding scholarships. Because what I hope you do is you save those essays from your scholarships and reuse them. You're going to customize them for the specific scholarship you're applying for, but it is definitely the way to work smarter, not harder. It's appropriate for you to reuse a personal statement because it is your personal statement, your experience, unless it's asking for a unique piece of creative writing. Absolutely reuse those essays, look over them, make sure they're appropriate, and use good examples. That is my soapbox moment on scholarships. Thank you. Talk to your department. Most departments do use the WSU General Scholarship application. They might have additional scholarship funds available. And then finally, external or outside scholarships. These are what you can reuse those personal statements on. Just make sure you're looking at a trusted scholarship search engine. We have one, and then we also, on our website, and then we've also on that brochure have recommended search engines that are trusted. So again, every single year, in a normal year, awarding begins in April. This year, the application wasn't closed. So everything is kind of pushed back. Things are being awarded as soon as possible, but we just want to make sure that you're prepared for the upcoming year. Speaking of timing, I can give you some information on that. So really important thing I want you to know is July is when you can first start accepting student loans. Parents can start applying for a Parent Plus loan if you choose. It's also when tuition, mandatory fees, housing and dining charges all go onto your student account. Now, that bill is just going to sit there because even if you've accepted loans, financial aid cannot release until a week before classes start. So that is a legal restriction. So just know, even if you know you're using your financial aid to pay these bills, nothing's going to happen until a week before classes in August. So just take a deep breath, know that that's normal. And also we're open all summer if you have questions about that. So next steps, what I hope you do moving forward. Students, I would really, really recommend that you regularly check your @wsu.edu email. Set a calendar reminder. Maybe do it once a week if you're not doing it more frequently than that. Check that task tile just in case you overlooked one of the emails that my department or someone else has sent you on an action you need to take. Next, you need to do your third-party authorization to anyone you want us to be able to talk to after classes start. So before you become a student, before the first day of classes, we are more freely able to talk to parents or supporters about your specific situation. As soon as you become a student, federal privacy laws come into effect, and we cannot share your information unless it's someone you have given us permission to talk to. And we will only share the information you have authorized us to talk about. So that federal privacy law I was talking about is FERPA, or Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. This is something we take very seriously. It applies to all offices and departments on WSU. Starting this year, since we're pulling information on the FAFSA directly from the IRS, we have even a greater burden of care to protect that financial information. So absolutely nothing is shared with other departments on campus unless that's necessary. So if you know you want to have allow us to talk to a parent or supporter. If you know you have a parent who wants to apply for a Parent Plus loan, you're going to initiate that process. If Parent Plus loan is part of what you want us to talk about, you have to specifically click on Parent Plus loan application. From that, your parent will receive the invitation to set up that account. Student must email from the email you used and said, you can talk to this person, because matching up that email address is how we're going to confirm that we're allowed to answer the questions posed. And then over the phone, to verbally confirm, there will be a third-party access code. So this is something that your parent or supporter has to say out loud. So they need to be able to remember it, and it needs to be something appropriate for that setting. So make sure it's something that you and your family can kind of remember, because without that, we can't talk to your parent. And it can be difficult, especially when, well, 2 days before classes, I could talk to, your great aunt. But after the first day of classes, if you don't have that third-party authorization in place and they don't have that code, I can't speak to them. I can give general information about how processes go at WSU, but I can't get anything specific to you. And that's something we take very seriously. So that is kind of our rapid fire, going over different types of aid, what actions you're going to need to take, what it looks like when you're doing that. You can use this QR code to grab any additional information as far as handouts. The presentation will be there. Contact information for our office. You can come in and visit us. We are open for also appointments. So both in-person and virtual appointments you can make right now. I find that to be really, really helpful to talk to the student and their supporter, making a plan to come here. When you've got that financial aid offer and you've got additional questions, you can share that appointment link with your supporter, and we can all talk together and share screens and make sure we're all on the same page. So I highly recommend that. We also have our phones that are open, and email. Email is something that we aggressively make sure we are answering those emails as soon as possible. But it can be sometimes that a phone call is a faster turnaround. Is there any questions from my team that I didn't cover that we want to make sure to point out? I want to definitely say, make sure to reach out to us if you have anything more than a general question, because of the privacy on specific situations. Feel free to email us, call us, make that appointment. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to hear you. Yes, we will be having a recording of the presentation for our website, as well as just the presentation, in case you don't want to hear me again. And our office is open, so if you visit school, if you visit campus, we have financial aid representatives there every business day. We're happy to help you. And that recording, as well as the presentation, can be found at that same QR code when they're up, which it will be shortly. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to call it here. And we can answer the last bit of questions that you have. And yeah, have a great night.